This episode is sponsored by OpenText, the information company. We power and protect information. Our purpose is to elevate every person and every organization to gain the information advantage. OpenText works to power the ubiquitous information around us to elevate everyone. We strive to help customers simplify their systems with frictionless automation and equip them to thrive and grow in a digital world. The LoadRunner family is one of many solutions where OpenText can help. Did you know that LoadRunner has the largest community of load testing professionals in the world? Check out the QR code or go to their website at opentext.com to find out more about the LoadRunner family. Check 1 2, check 1 2. Is this thing on? If it is, guess what? It's time for the SMC Journal podcast. This is the show that's all about making software better through performance engineering, software engineering, observability, tuning, testing, security, just making software better than it was before we found it. That's what this show is all about, and I am Scott Moore, your host, and I appreciate you joining me today. LoadRunner. It is now officially an OpenText product, and they have a new release out. So if you missed the news last week, LoadRunner 2023 Release 1 is now officially available, and there are several new features in that. OpenText being one of the major sponsors of this program, I thought it's always good to bring on David McLeish, product marketing manager for the product for LoadRunner Professional, and he's also the spokesperson for several of the other products because, you know, there are a bunch of shy folks there at OpenText. They don't like to get all the glory, but they let David sit there and get all the fame and fortune talking about all the products on this show. And it's always good to have him on. So let's talk about what's going on with the newest LoadRunner family features, additions to the product, and where we think we're going now that LoadRunner is officially an OpenText product. Let's bring on David. Hey, David, it's good to see you again on the SMC Journal podcast.
Hey, Scott. Always good to be here. Nice to see you again.
Well, if we're talking, it must be about what's happening in the LoadRunner family and what's new. It means there's some new and exciting changes coming on board, and that's going to be today's show. I think the biggest news that we have to reveal here is that OpenText, Micro Focus is officially OpenText now. Can you tell your customers what that actually means?
Yeah, so we're now post-acquisition, probably about 4 months or 5 months. And in fact, this week it's quite an exciting week because we've just had our annual kickoff, so people know the plans for FY24. And it's been really good. I mean, I've been through 3 or 4 mergers and acquisitions, and I like to think I'm getting used to these, but it's been quite good because things have happened so fast. Decisions have been made early on. Migrations have happened quickly. Everybody's now all sort of working from the same hymn sheet. And it's quite refreshing for it to happen so fast and be integrated so fast. And also, OpenText are giving us the assurances that there's lots of product investment. In fact, we have roadmaps right probably for about 2 years in advance. And we have a clear direction in the market that OpenText play in, the synergies they want to see across our products. We're going to be going in towards AI and things like that, all the exciting stuff that's very relevant and hot in the market today. So, yeah, very exciting.
And so LoadRunner is now officially, it's OpenText LoadRunner, and that's what people should expect. It's all the products are OpenText whatever.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's but some of it, the rebranding may not be fully there in the product until sometime in our FY24 release. This release round, we focused on getting as many features in and packed in and out the door, not just professional, but the shared technologies we have under the hood, as well as enterprise and cloud. But the big push after this product, after this release, is lots of rebranding. We're going to redo all of our help centers, and we have lots of great creative ideas about how this is going to look and feel.
Okay, awesome. So people should start expecting all these logo changes, all these name changes, which is interesting in and of itself. But now let's get into LoadRunner. So we've got a new LoadRunner release, LoadRunner 2023 R1 Release 1. And normally the new features start in LoadRunner Professional, but there's probably more other features that you can mention in other products. But let's talk about that. What are the great new features in R1?
Yeah, so the way we've started working quite recently is we've sort of unified our messaging right across the entire portfolio. We're talking about features and capabilities and how that resonates with the market. So we do talk about product specific features, but we like to talk about the feature and the value that brings to customers, and the fact that we have a suite of products. We don't compete against each other. We complete depending on your testing requirement, the persona involved. So what we're doing is we've broken these into, I'm just looking here, about 8 categories: user experience, data and analytics, load testing and modeling, cloud and SaaS, modernization, integrations and ecosystem, security infrastructure, and then all of this is sort of underpinned by ViewGen and protocols, and also I should mention that LoadRunner Developer is a key product now in the portfolio that seems to sometimes be forgot about. It's our best kept secret, and one we're really pushing hard to promote and to show the value of shift left testing and baking that in very early.
We talked about that on a podcast just a few weeks ago about LoadRunner Developer, and I agreed. I think more people need to know about it. And when I posted that on social media, I actually did get quite a bit of feedback on there saying, "Hey, that's actually pretty cool. I didn't know about that." So let's break down LoadRunner Professional. You've got features that are in ViewGen, the controller, probably analysis. Are there any new protocols that we should know about?
Yes, so we have a new one. It's for testing web services on AWS. It's called Simple Queue System, and really it's for testing message queuing platforms or message queuing for microservices. And again, this is one that Jur worked on. It's a shared technology that we're bringing to the market through all the products because it's in ViewGen, and we'll just surface that in all of the products. And again, this is one that sort of cements us as the leader in the market in terms of the protocol and the breadth of our support. And again, lots of customer demand for this. And we're pretty hopeful that this is going to resonate pretty well, because the way we seed and triage our backlog is that we have a full public backlog where we open things for votes or under consideration. And again, this is one of customer-driven enhancement. The customers were asking us about this, and it's one you will see each and every time we are going to continue our investment in our protocols. And I know from what we have planned, there's going to be a lot of new protocols introduced over the next few years.
Interesting, very interesting. What about monitors? Are there any new monitors?
Well, we've slowed down a little bit on the monitors. So recently we've had like Datadog, we've had Prometheus, which is getting good traction. So what we're doing is we're putting a lot of effort into sort of researching the next move that we're going to do, because obviously, excuse me, if we build point-to-point integrations, it's quite timely and expensive in terms of maintenance overhead on that. And the way the market is going, we may have to pivot and probably do something with OpenTelemetry. So we've paused our release of our monitors because I think we have most of those platforms covered. There's maybe one or two that's not on there, like maybe Honeycomb, which I seen was just announced quite high on the Gartner reports. But we haven't did anything on this time. So what we've did is on the data and analytics, we've sort of focused on the reporting aspect. So we've put in new features onto the online controller charts so that you can actually do more with the data as it's being collected. You can measure it easier. You can scale it. We have new context menus added there so that you can show and display and hide and toggle and things like that. And then on the same type of theme, we've added a service level agreement boundary for Optex because lots of customers are now using Optex to measure performance. So again, that's what we've did when we group these under data and analytics.
Awesome. So what other things can you mention, or other features in other products?
Okay, so if we look at the user experience, what we've did is we really focused on quality and user experience. Any things that we found that we were either suffering in terms of maybe things weren't stable enough, or customers were saying that something was laggy. So we actually looked at all of our enhancements. We looked at all of the defects that we had coming in. And we actually started categorizing these in terms of where do we think people are reporting problems, where do we think we need to increase our quality. So we really stabilized lots of our modules under the hood. We're building an educational library so that we're releasing quick start guides, how-to videos. So, for example, usually the non-web protocols like Citrix or Remote Desktop, SAP, people always have a sort of steep learning curve on those. And I find myself and my R&D guys find ourselves, and our tech support guys find ourselves rehashing the same information. This is the steps, go to this link. This is a YouTube video on that. So we're going to actually productize those and release those as part of our own help centers, quick start guides, and how-to videos. We've also, and again, that's a key theme that we will see every release. We have story points associated with building new collateral, building new assets, and as things go along, probably even something like this SQS protocol, we'll eventually have to release a video for that. So they will go hand in hand. Any new technology or feature that we release, we'll probably build a new asset in our video library going forward. We've also changed some of the reporting in LRP. So through our license utility, we used to ship or we do still ship a thing called usage analytics, and it gives you bare bones information about types of protocols you test, the amount of runs. So we've swapped the technology in that and made it a little bit more resilient and removing, again, less technical debt going forward. And with this, it gives you the ability to sort of save as in different formats and then reuse that stakeholder meeting. And again, this was another request from customers where they thought that they needed this information outside of that utility. They need to make it available on SharePoint. They need to make it available in different formats. And again, it's us sort of telling this story that we're continuously modernizing, we're continuously reducing the total cost of ownership of our tools. And again, that was a customer-driven enhancement, like most of the things we're actually going to see in this release, because I think we have a far better process now than we did in the past about when a customer request comes in, how we triage it, how we open it for votes, and then ultimately how we plan it and deliver it in a future release.
You know, I think going back and doing almost like a refactoring every once in a while, you know how Apple used to do. Every so many operating system releases, they would just refactor, make things smaller, faster, and then putting some time in to not lose the context of why do we have this protocol and how does it work, and the educational part of it. Super important, because I do find that is one of the biggest problems is we have new people coming on. Other people have been there for a while. They move on to other jobs and other tasks, or they get promoted, and we lose that context of why we were doing stuff before, and then stuff gets made up, and then somebody just goes out and asks Chat GPT and it gives them the wrong answer because it doesn't really remember the context either. So I think that's really important. I did want to ask you about, there are two really valuable add-ins that now come with LoadRunner, which are network virtualization and service virtualization. Have there been any changes or additions to them?
Well, other than we're unlocking the capability on SV service virtualization, we do have a separate standalone product that can be purchased, and obviously it has a broader set of capabilities. But for every LoadRunner professional customer, we offer this entitlement. I mean, if they log into their software license download portal, they'll see SV Designer available for download, and the idea is that they're allowed to build and simulate and introduce into their testing up to 7 virtual services. LoadRunner Enterprise customers are allowed, I think it's 15 virtual services. And again, like NV and ASV, it's one of those ones that sometimes it's quite forgotten about, but it can be so powerful in introducing that to your testing cycle, because you think of someone as a customer that was maybe relying on a third-party source that they had to hire a service from. I mean, they can't hire that service again outside of production and have another cost into their non-production environments, where you can use SV to simulate or to stub out that service. So you don't even need to pay for that. Or what happens if you were waiting on something that was being built and it's not quite built yet, and then you can virtualize that and then you basically eliminate waste time waiting on something not being ready. And again, we're starting to see lots of traction on this. And in fact, just a few days ago, there was a webinar, which I think quite a lot of our customers might have attended, where we're showing the value of service virtualization and how you embed that into your performance testing. So it is still there, and going forward, we'll probably extend those capabilities. And what we do is we will inherit the new features from SV as a standalone product. So when they put in new features and new protocols, then we'll inherit those from that team. And I think it's quite an exciting things for our customers to start adding on. And one of those things is like chaos. It ultimately just extends your performance testing. It gives them new life. It allows you to test more things and to get very creative about how you build up your testing assets.
I'm glad you mentioned that. In a couple of episodes from now, in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to be having a podcast about SteadyBit and their integration with LoadRunner, and had a great conversation with the founder of that company. And thank you for introducing me to them. So that was a great conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that you can go into LoadRunner and have multiple options for resilience engineering built into that. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, and again, when we look at chaos, it's one of those ones that we just don't stop. We introduced Gremlin. We listened to some of our customers and some of the market, and they said, look, maybe you need to offer more than just a pure SaaS player. So that's why we went back to the drawing board. We selected SteadyBit. We've set a great relationship up with SteadyBit. And in fact, in this release, we have some new runtime settings just to support chaos, because what happened is we basically just orchestrated that test, looked at the measurements that were collected at that point, and just bring them back into the controller. But what we actually do now is we actually can act on those measurement points coming in. So if that test fails on the resiliency platform, then our test will fail as well. So we have a fail on error feature that we've introduced again. And then ultimately, I think where we'll get to is we'll start writing data onto these other platforms, and we'll have this whole bi-directional transaction going on. So I think that's where we're going to go. And chaos is hot in the market. There's lots of new vendors. We have some things that we're sort of having iron in the fire at the moment about, do we take someone next? Do we just continue to build on the features we have with our two vendors? Because at this point, I think we're the only performance testing tool or performance engineering tool that actually supports off-premise or off cloud, as we call it now, as well as cloud vendors. So most other people only have one integration point into resiliency. We now have two, and that covers SaaS and on-premise. So yeah, I think it's one of those continued investment buckets that we'll keep working on.
Awesome. LoadRunner Enterprise and LoadRunner Cloud, are there things that people should be watching for there?
Yeah. So if we look at LRE, we've introduced a few new APIs. So again, customer-driven features where they want to be able to orchestrate the assignment of users to certain projects. So we've introduced a new API to unassign users from a project. Again, it's around total cost of ownership, being able to orchestrate and automate that process. We've also introduced Kubernetes EKS support. Again, another customer-driven enhancement. We've new features in there to support, password updates in LDAP and SSO. Obviously, we're building integration points into Value Edge, which is our larger platform where we put all of our products together. So there's Value Edge performance updates in LRE. And again, then they're going to be consuming the stuff that Jira has delivered. For example, Brotli encoding is now supported in VueGen. Again, this is another enhancement. In fact, a customer just logged this morning. Again, wanting this, even though he hadn't seen the other one that we had already accepted. And what else? There's SAP GUI improvements there as well. We have new features. I think there's 3. Yeah, remain open on error, relaunch client on Christ, so things like that. where we needed to sort of strengthen an existing protocol. And then we have LRD that's being released. I looked this morning, there's like 6 or 7 main customer enhancements on that as well. So lots going on. And if we look at LoadRunner Cloud, what else? Yeah, so they've introduced a new UI in there around the virtual user hours calculator, because that was one that sometimes customers were a little confused about because they have this consumption model. So we've now updated the UI to have a calculator in there that allows them to see and be very clear about how much virtual user hours is going to be consumed by a specific test. Let me see. Yeah, there's new runtime settings there to deal with DevWeb and the pacing options that DevWeb has. And then also we've updated some of our third-party libraries there for security around OpenSSL 3.0, and as well, again, making us the open vendor. We've updated our support for Gatling. We've moved to the latest, which I think is 3.9x, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, for being a short release window of 3 or 4 months, we've put quite a punch in this for just an R1 release.
Yeah, it is quite a punch. So, is there anything from here on out? Now we're all on with open text. Can you share anything about your thoughts about the future in terms of where you want to take LoadRunner from here, or the kinds of requests that customers are coming in with that you're looking at right now?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing is obviously OpenAI, ChatGPT, it's quite prevalent at the moment. I mean, us as a company, we have a regenerative AI policy that we need to sort of tread very carefully around, because we don't want to introduce risk to our customers' business. We don't want to introduce liability to their business and to our own business. So there's a huge project underway at the moment where we're looking about the policies we have. Do we go with OpenAI, ChatGPT, or do we look at looking at large language models? Because we can train these large language models, we can own these large language models, and we know that the data that's there, it's already validated and we can use that data. Or we could maybe add things like bots, but we know that they don't go outside and crawl the internet for things. We can have it just crawl our own help centers, our own API guides. So that's one area, and one area that OpenText as a company across all of our portfolios, because bear in mind, we're just ADM in our portfolio, but they have their own portfolios around information management. OpenAI is a key thing, and it's things that we're probably going to team up across the portfolios, and we'll probably build some sort of layer that we'll all consume from in all the portfolios. That's one. The other thing is around observability. I did mention it. We will probably continue to invest in our point-to-point integrations. So there's a few things that we don't quite support yet. So for example, Honeycomb, but that's relatively new. We probably will keep our investment on those point-to-points, but may change tack and do the open telemetry where we just write a collector, and then we have not only the metrics, but we can take the events, the logs, the traces. Now, how we visualize that is a different matter, because we then will have a huge pile of data that we then have to stream in and read and visualize, which probably takes me to the next point, our analysis engine. It's one that's going through extensive rework at the moment. I mean, you've seen there, I put on service level agreements for AppDex. I put new features into the online charts. So this is one where we think where AI and sort of machine learning will play a key part, because we want to take the data, but we want to present it back to you in a way that gets you to the root cause of an issue much quicker. Because I know myself, I mean, I run tests, I do demos. Sometimes you spend more time looking at the test results than you actually do preparing an environment. And I think it's one of those things that it's sometimes forgotten about, because people run a test knowing what's going to happen. But what happens when you put chaos in there, or you put something else? that brings back something that you weren't expecting. How do you visualize that? How do you report upon that? And then how do you use that to your stakeholders or to make an informed decision? So we will put a lot of effort into our analysis engine and building and shipping new reports and new features on that front.
Wow, that does sound exciting. You mentioned training an AI language, a large language model, so that it is
Mm-hmm.
accurate. So it only crawls. I've heard that called causal AI versus generative AI, because generative AI is just
Mm-hmm.
everything. It just goes out there. And I remember one of the first
Yeah.
questions I asked ChatGPT was, explain what VUGen is. And it said VUGen was visual user generator. Now, where it got that information from, it wasn't virtual user
Yeah.
generator. So right
Yeah.
there, I mean, it's a small thing, but if you're
Yeah.
looking for accuracy, now I suspect everything else that I ask it is not going to be totally 100% correct. If you train it on a model that you know the information, it's only going to get valid information that you want it to be fed. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing that being causal AI. I mean, it actually knows what it's talking about, and it can put it into context. So I'm totally a fan of that. And I do think that the holy grail has always been for the performance engineer to say, computer, run test and tell me what's wrong and fix it while you're at it. I remember over 20 years ago when I was just a LoadRunner user at just a company, and I was having a support question or something, and it made it to R&D back in the day. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
Mercury days, right? And I remember saying, I want a
Yeah.
graph that says, here's the large timing, here's the CPU or whatever metrics that are all wrong, and here's what you need to do to fix it. And they wrote me back and they were like, Scott, you've just defined the holy grail of performance engineering. And if you know how to figure that out, let us know. We'll put it into the product. So maybe we might be getting there. Maybe we're on the cusp of
Well,
that.
we are. I mean, I think that's where we're sort of. I mean, we want to introduce more automation to performance testing. I don't think we'll ever devalue the skills that a performance tester has in terms of setting environments, recording, scripting, understanding the data. But we want to make those quicker. Hence why we're updating our true client. Hence why we have the ability to import HAR files from a browser to build a test case. Hence why we have LRD to start performance testing earlier. But we also see on the far side of that, when you get your data back, how do you create reports, how to slice and dice that data to get what you need. And that's where we think some of these things around machine learning and natural language processing engines, because if you say, if we have an LLM that we have pre-trained, we know how to do the relationships, the mapping. Ultimately, we could have a natural language processing engine that goes and looks at the results and builds those reports, writes an email for you, drops it into the email. And I think that's where we'll go. We'll start moving towards automating some of those tasks that take an awful lot of time. Not automating the skills that you need to build these environments and things like that, and to record against these complex applications, but to understand and present the data, or maybe even just look at the AI around correlation. I know correlation takes an awful long time, especially on things like SAP and things like that are continually evolving. So if we can make that much easier and reduce the pain you need to do around correlation and dealing with dynamic data, then I think that's where I think the whole industry will start shifting towards, not just us within
I am
LoadRunner.
all for fixing correlation issues, the bane of my existence, and also maybe it will look at analysis in a way we've never thought about before and develop relationships on data that says, did you know that this may be causing this? No, we never thought about that. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm excited about the future of this and where this is going. So, is there anything else you want to mention before we close up today?
No, just it's good to chat and connect. And if anybody needs any additional deep dive or wants to learn more, please come. But call to action: use the new integrations, use our chaos capability. If there's something there that we're missing or we need to beef up, let us know. Go on our public idea exchange. Go and have a look at what other users are looking for, because I'm envisaging that it's not a single use case for most of our customers. So the way we work on things is we want customers to upvote. Usually, anything that's upvoted or has a higher percentage of votes, then it, it it bubbles up to the top a lot quicker, and we do rank and prioritize based on the amount of customers that are requesting features. So yeah, please let us know. And if there's something that's there and it's irking you, or we need to make a small change, let us know. We can easily pivot there. And I mean, we're going to keep coming to the market with multiple releases per year. So we have a full release train in front of us. We may even move to the OpenText 90-day release policy at some stage. At the moment, for the moment now, we're on normal cadence. But yeah, lots of good things in the works, and looking forward to connecting with our customer base.
One thing I can say is you and Jer and everybody at OpenText now has always been very responsive. And if there's ever any feedback that I get on social, I pass it to you. I'm normally hearing from you within hours, and you're always willing to talk to customers about stuff. So that's great. I will make sure that we have links on here that points to, I know there's usually a README file with every release that's going to go through all these things we talked about. So I'll point people to that, as well as how they can get on that list where they can start ranking some of this backlog and get more involved with that too. So we'll make sure we have that on the show notes as well. Thank you again, David, for being on the show, and we'll look forward to having you on for future releases as well.
Well, welcome. Thanks, Scott.
All right. You know, I meant what I said about the product marketing team at OpenText being very responsive and open to your feedback. You know who else is open to your feedback? Me. I'd really like to hear what you think about this show, as well as if you like the content that we're providing. You can reach me on most social platforms. LinkedIn is primarily the one that I use, but I'm on others as well. If you scan that QR code, it'll take you to my link it's a bio page with all these links of how you can get in touch with me. But you can also send me an email to Scott@smcjournal.com. Would love to hear from you. Would be great if you like this content, if you could like the video, give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out. And so for this episode of the SMC Journal podcast, this is Scott Moore thanking you once again for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.